welcome back to the Inja 2.0. We're going to take a little bit of a behind the scenes look on the McLaren 650S today and ask if it has a bad head gasket. That's like the most common question I get in the comment sections. The head gasket's got to be bad. Like, you're doing all this work, putting in all this money, doing all this stuff. You're going to start up the first time and it's got quite a checkered history, that is for sure. The first owner, Dave, somebody reached out to me, his best friend apparently, reached out to me and said the first owner, his name was Dave, he took it across the country many times to do car shows with it, that kind of thing. He drove the car for 52,000 miles within the first couple years of ownership, so that actually does check out. The second owner, who crashed into a light pole, drove it for about 11,000 miles after Dave, the original owner. But the history being as checkered as it is, I am piecing it together, and I think I have a pretty good grasp on why I think that the head gasket probably is not bad. There's some service records I want to show you guys right now. I just bought almost $800 worth of fluids because I'm this confident that the head gasket's not bad. And there's a couple other little things I want to show you guys why I think this car is going to be running and driving once we actually get all the fluids and everything connected back up. Let's get into it. All right, welcome back to e-bike central. I have currently 5 e-bikes in this garage, taking up all the space. Every video I do, obviously I just have to take everything out of the garage so I have a clean work environment. But man, it gets cluttered fast in this time of year when everybody's sending e-bikes to me. Anyway, it's a very blessed life, but e-bikes, man, freaking e-bikes. All right, so what you guys are looking at is the OEM coolant. I don't know if it's actually OEM, but this is a spec that Sean at McMedics uses and everybody on forums is using, G48 Xerox. I also have a bunch of, this is not OEM, gear oil, SAE 75 W90, but it sure is the correct rating for the car. And it was probably 2/3 the price, like 60% of the price as like the OEM stuff, but it should do the exact same thing. It's just a machine. That's the exact viscosity and the same ratings as the other ones. So we should be good there. And surprisingly enough, Napa, the big warehouse, the biggest warehouse in my entire area, actually had Pentosan FFL4. I was not expecting to be able to find this. I thought for sure I'd have to order this online and wait for it. Napa actually did have it. But what you guys are looking at right here is $765 worth of fluids, just fluids. The filters to replace the clutch and the transmission filter as well, that's another $300 or something. And this obviously is not including engine oil, which is probably another $200 with the filter. $1,000 to do this freaking fluid swap. And I don't even know if we actually need to do a fluid swap on the transmission and the clutch, but I'm gonna at least swap out the fluids. Filters I might clean temporarily as we actually start getting this thing running, up and running. I just kind of wanted to share that. That's what I've been doing like half the day, is just finding fluids and getting all the stuff that we need. You guys haven't seen this yet, but I'm actually starting to fit the radiators into the car, and I actually am rebuilding. I'm rebuilding the last couple coolant lines that I need. I didn't order the part because I couldn't find it, so I'm just gonna fabricate it. This is the tube that I need to make for the other side that goes in here. That will run here and go to this radiator down here. And that was the tube I was missing this whole time. So I'm gonna have these radiators mounted up hopefully by the end of today. And dude, this system we can actually pressure test and see if we can actually fill this thing up with coolant and actually run this car up to temperature. Super exciting. This coolant line, I have no idea where it goes, but once the radiators are connected, I'll look at another diagram and see if I can find where that coolant hose goes. Not much to figure out anymore. It's just one little thing here and there. I am just very excited to mount up the actual body panels to this car. I did get a riv nut gun, so I could actually like do riv nuts and stuff. And that's OEM how all of these are. I've never done riv nuts before, but they're actually pretty much all riv nuts. Every mounting point is a riv nut on this car. So I'm gonna be repairing it the OEM fashion, which is pretty cool. And riv nuts will be a good skill to have in the future, I think. All right, so let's real quick talk about if we have a bad head gasket. Obviously, we won't know if we have a bad head gasket until we actually fire this thing up and let it run up to operating temperature. You guys saw in my last video, there was nothing really milky or anything that we could see just from a visual inspection of the empty coolant container, which is a good sign. But also last night when I was thinking about it having a head gasket, I checked the footage of the first start on this thing that we did. That thing fired right up, sounded real healthy, and it didn't puff any smoke. There was a little bit of wispy smoke right at the first start, but every car does that, so I'm not worried about that. So yeah, anyway, I think when we actually warm this thing up to temperature, I really doubt it's just gonna start billowing smoke and have a bad head gasket. Besides the car actually driving, I think I'm pretty confident. As far as the engine and the internals go, I think we're set. Everything I've done on it so far would indicate that it's healthy. It just needs some basic maintenance done, finally, and then somebody to actually care for it and drive it like it should be driven. Up till this point, I think it's just been mostly all highway miles on this thing. Some people tracking it, I'm sure. Second owner probably really ripped this thing around. First owner obviously probably showed off a little bit in it as well, but that's what these cars are made for. Like, these are race cars, they're made for that. So yeah, as long as this thing goes into gear, I have no major concerns for it right now. The only last concern I might have, it's still a mystery, is just the transmission. I've never tried putting it in gear yet. And another quick behind the scenes look, you guys saw on Instagram if you follow me there, which you probably don't. I pressurized the AC system. I just put in the high pressure fittings for the AC lines. There were a couple people last video that told me correctly that some of the coolant lines that I put here were actually AC lines. So those are high pressure lines, and it's the refrigerant system in the car. High pressure. I didn't know that. Thank you guys for telling me again. But I actually installed some high pressure fittings that I've never done before, but it actually worked great. I pressurized the AC system. I think we're all set to go. It held the vacuum steady for like an hour and a half. There was nothing that concerned me really. So that's super awesome news. So through the Carfax, there was a lot of service records for this car. I wouldn't say there's a lot of service records for this car, but there was consistent service records throughout the life of the car, even into the second ownership, which is good. So the coolant, when we got the car, it was completely crystal clear. Like, there was no sign that the coolant had been in there for any length of time beyond like a couple thousand miles, maybe since before the car was crashed, which was slightly concerning for me because a lot of people who flip cars like this at auction, they like to just swap all the fluids, especially if there's a bad head gasket. They swap all the fluids so it looks like there's nothing wrong. But there's actually a service record on this car. There was a checklist of all the service that was done in that one service block, and one of them was replace coolant. I think that was right at the tail end of the first owner, and that was several thousand miles ago, and they could not have accessed the engine bay. Nobody has opened that engine bay. So it has had this exact coolant in here for several thousand miles already. So that's very indicative that there's nothing wrong with the head gasket. If it's been in here for several thousand miles and it still looks nice and fresh, I really don't think there's gonna be anything wrong with it. There is not a service record for the oil change, like, ever, except for like the near end of ownership for the first owner. So that oil had been in there for probably almost 20,000 miles. I just can't, it blows my mind that people can actually run cars like this with such little maintenance and such disregard for maintenance schedules. Even my first car, which was like a 1998 Saturn SL2, got it for $1,500, had like 200,000 miles on it, everything. I was up to date on those services every single time it needed a service. It's because I respect my stuff. I don't know how people can't respect their stuff when they have a freaking McLaren and they can't even do an oil change on it for the entire ownership of the car. Zero appreciation. My philosophy is, if you're not grateful for what you have, like, you probably don't even need it or deserve it. Like, one of the two. But anyway, that being said, all the service records check out. So nobody touched the fluids in this car since it was wrecked. The oil was as it was. There was no real service record for that. And then the coolant swap was done several thousand miles ago. I can't remember the exact figure, but I looked at the Carfax last night. Hydraulic fluid was also pretty fresh. Coolant was very fresh. Oil was bad. I haven't checked the transmission fluid, haven't checked the clutch fluid, but I bought all of them just in case. I'm probably just gonna do a fresh fluid swap. I'm hoping I don't really even need to do transmission and clutch fluid. Hopefully that was swapped out at some point during a service interval, but I could not find anything specific on that. I found a specific coolant replacement in a recent service interval, so that checks out. Anyway, right now I have no major concerns right now on this. I'm just gonna get the cooling system finished up. I'm gonna pressurize that, make sure it'll hold fluids since we did all of this crazy coolant line repair here. And if it holds pressure in the coolant system, I'm just gonna fill it up and we can actually run this thing up to temperature. At this point, I wanna say I can't believe that it's at this point, but it feels like such a long time in the making that this thing is actually running and driving that I just wanna get it done at this point, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, so I got one radiator temporarily mounted up there, still have to connect the hoses, and then the second one is going in right after that. And in order to start the car, I think I'm gonna have to have the brake system pressurized as well. And while I'm doing that, I might as well pressurize pressurize the hydraulic system as well, have everything fully functional. Yeah, next video you guys should be seeing, this thing should hopefully be starting up or pretty dang close to it. It's gonna come together really quick. I just couldn't get it done this week before the weekend hit because I'll be working all weekend, and so I can't get something out, you know, until next week on this. So I want to keep you guys updated here at least. Probably just got another e-bike. I really hope this thing is running and driving no problem when I actually connect all the systems back up. I'm so excited for this and I really can't wait for it. That is where we're at on the 650S project. About time to get this thing running and driving. So anyway, I'll catch you guys in the next McLaren video on the main channel.